And we start in Ethiopia, where many people have been killed and injured in the Oromia region after security forces fired on a major protest there. Police used tear gas and warning shots in response to the protest, triggering a stampede that has caused many casualties, with unconfirmed reports suggesting a death toll that could reach 300. For Arise News, Adam Rook has this report.
A day that began with religious celebration across Ethiopia fast becomes one of chaos. Anti-government sentiments take hold among the thousands gathered here. Police fire tear gas and warning shots in response. As tensions rose, military helicopters flew above the crowd at low altitude in what was seen by many as an effort to intimidate the gathering crowd. While there has been no independent confirmation, some activists are quoted as saying nearly 300 people have been killed and many more injured. An estimated total of 2 million people were attending the annual Irrecha event, considered the biggest cultural and spiritual celebration in Africa. The event took place in one of the country's most sensitive regions, Oromia, which has seen several months of sometimes deadly protests demanding wider freedoms. Ethiopia's government has acknowledged deaths during the event, saying in a statement that lives were lost, adding those responsible will face justice. Today's events follow months of anti-government protests in several parts of Ethiopia, and what has been seen by many as harsh government responses continues to raise international concern. Adam Rook, Arise News.
Well, I'm joined now by Awal Allo, a human rights expert at the London School of Economics. Awal, welcome. What will these deaths mean then to the Oromo people, especially as only a few months ago that, according to the Human Rights Watch group in New York, over 500 people were killed in similar protests back in March?
Absolutely. What I think this shows is a certain intensification on the part of the government to take this movement to a completely different direction. Let me just give you some context in terms of what this event means and what it signifies for the Oromo people. This is one of the most important occasions in the Oromo calendar, where Oromos come together to reaffirm what it means to be an Oromo, what it means to be a human, and also celebrate the cultural richness of life and the ecology. So people come to this sacred event, this most protected of spaces, to celebrate these values, these ideas, and no one have expected to be massacred in this way by a government that deliberately shoots and fires from helicopters in circumstances where millions of people congregated in a very crowded space.
Let's talk about the protests themselves and where they started off. Originally, it was all about Addis Ababa imposing land grabs on the Oromo people, but that has more recently changed, hasn't it, to a more general protest against the government? Absolutely.
So initially the protest was triggered by the government's decision to expand the city of Addis Ababa into neighboring Oromia regions. People thought that such a decision would result in essentially cleansing Oromo culture, Oromo way of life from around the city of Addis Ababa. So that what triggered the protest. But of course, people have moved beyond that specific land issue, and now the protest is about a broader systemic change against the system, against the government that has no response except killing people.
And these protests are now widespread. We saw recently at the Rio Olympics one of the Ethiopian athletes holding his arms crossed as he went on the podium to receive his medal. And we're looking at pictures now. Oh, there he is. We've got the pictures for you of when that happened. He was promised safe passage when he got back home, but he hasn't been seen, has he, since he got back to Ethiopia?
No, he didn't return to Ethiopia, actually. He is currently in the US, because there is no way that someone so high profile, someone who used such a significant stage to propel the grievance of his people into the international spotlight will go back home and be safe. There is no way that would have happened. So he didn't go back home. But I think what is important is that the protests continued and the demands of the people have continued, and the questions haven't changed. The response of the government so far is simply to use overwhelming force.
And they have apologised, of course, it must be said. The Ethiopian Prime Minister has apologised. But now the US has said they very much regret and are concerned about the use of excessive force against the protesters, and the UN has even offered to send in mediation. What can the Ethiopian government do to stop the bloodshed?
The important point here is the Ethiopian Prime Minister is not in control. He is simply someone that is put there by the most significant element in government to represent this facade of a government that represents everyone. The apology that he offered was a very qualified apology. There was no commitment, for example, to carry out a proper independent investigation into the killings. So they have not been forthcoming in terms of what government is responsible for. All he said was the government is responsible for some very general mistake that was committed by rogue elements within the military and within the police. So that doesn't really qualify as an apology.
Awal Allo from Kiel University. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.